Think about the greatest human empire in history.
Okay.
Or actually, if you want to go even bigger, think about the absolute brightest, most massive burning star in the night sky.
Right. The real heavyweights of the universe.
Exactly. But if you give them enough time, they both share the exact same inescapable fate.
They break down.
They rot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is the law of entropy.
It is.
It's this completely unavoidable reality that's just, baked into the very physics of our universe. All systems eventually stall.
Without exception, yeah.
Right. We see it in thermodynamics. We see it in our biology as we age. And honestly, maybe most painfully, we see it in human legacies.
Oh, for sure, the sociological decay.
Yeah. You look at these great ideas, these noble movements, objective truths that start out so strong in a society, and eventually they just face the friction of time.
They get corrupted.
They fade into noise.
Right.
It just seems like entropy always wins.
Well, it's a rather bleak view of reality, I'll give you that.
It is.
Yeah. But you're right, it's the default assumption of the physical world. If you leave a system alone, it degrades. There's really no escaping the second law of thermodynamics.
Right.
However, what is truly fascinating here, and what we're getting into in this deep dive, is that when we look at certain ancient texts through a purely systemic analytical lens, we find a direct counter-argument to this law.
A highly technical one, too.
Yes, highly technical. Specifically, I'm looking at J.R. Ahmed's incredibly thought-provoking book, The Algebra of Revelation.
Such a good book.
It really is. And Ahmed takes this bleak view of universal entropy and completely dismantles it using, one of the most famously misunderstood aspects of the Quran.
The detached letters.
Exactly, the detached letters.
Right. So for anyone listening who isn't familiar, these are those seemingly random letters that appear at the very beginning of certain chapters.
Right.
And Ahmed focuses specifically on the 5 letters that open Surah Maryam, which is chapter 19.
Which are Kāf-Hā-Yā-ʿAyn, and Ṣād.
Now, for centuries, people have looked at these simply as this esoteric mystery.
Right, like a puzzle.
Yeah, a mystical puzzle meant only for spiritual contemplation. Something we aren't, really supposed to logically decode.
Exactly. The traditional approach is often just one of reverent mystification. You just accept it.
Right.
But Ahmed frames them entirely differently. He argues that this sequence is not some vague mystical riddle at all.
Not even a little bit.
No. Instead, he proposes that Kāf-Hā-Yā-ʿAyn-Ṣād actually functions as a hyper-technical systemic header.
A systemic header.
Yes. If you look at the modular architecture of the text, he argues this 5-part code acts as an alert.
Okay.
It's a precise metadata string designed for one highly specific operational purpose.
Which is the functional restoration of a legacy signal.
Exactly. It is essentially the blueprint for how the divine source ensures that objective truth survives.
Actively overriding the decay.
Right, overriding both biological decay and sociological collapse.
Okay, wait, let's unpack this for a second because I have to push back a little here.
Sure, go ahead.
We are talking about a 1,400-year-old desert manuscript.
We are.
So calling a sequence of 5 letters a metadata string or a systemic header, it sounds an awful lot like we're just projecting modern Silicon Valley computer science jargon onto ancient mysticism to make it sound cool.
That is a very fair skepticism.
Right. Like, how does Ahmed actually justify using that kind of language?
Well, that's exactly why Ahmed's linguistic breakdown is so vital here. We have to understand that classical Arabic is fundamentally algebraic.
Algebraic.
Yes. It's a language built entirely on root consonants that act as semantic formulas.
Oh, right. The 3-letter roots.
Exactly. You plug different vowels into a 3-letter root, and you get different words, but they all carry the mathematical DNA of that original root.
Okay, that makes sense.
So when these 5 specific letters are isolated at the very beginning of a chapter that is literally about restoring a dead lineage and fighting societal corruption, it is not a coincidence.
It's an algorithmic preamble.
Yes.
Okay.
It is establishing the exact systemic parameters for everything that follows in that chapter.
All right, I can see that. If the language itself operates like a formula, then isolating the variables totally makes sense.
Right.
So if we're talking about a systemic header, I want you, the listener, to think about the laptop or the phone sitting right in front of you right now.
Good analogy.
Thanks. So when the operating system catastrophically fails, right, and the hard drive is totally corrupted.
It happens to all of us.
Yeah, it's the worst.
Right.
But you cannot fix it from within that broken system itself. The system just doesn't have the capacity anymore.
Right. The entropy is taken over.
Exactly. You need a recovery drive. You need an override master code from an external, entirely uncorrupted source to salvage the machine.
And that is what Ahmed is saying Kāf-Hā-Yā-ʿAyn is.
It's the exact metadata required for that functional restoration.
That is an excellent way to conceptualize it. It's the rescue program.
Yeah.
And if we want to understand how this divine override actually operates in reality, we have to logically deconstruct the master code itself.
Letter by letter.
Letter by letter. We need to see the restorative data stream in action.
Well, let's boot up the recovery drive then. How does this master code actually break down? Let's start with the first variable.
Okay, so the first pillar of the code is the letter Kāf.
Kāf.
Right. In the Quranic lexicon, Kāf is the semantic anchor for Kāf-Hā, which means sufficiency or being enough.
Okay.
Systemically, Kāf represents the principle of systemic sufficiency. It establishes the total capacity of the source.
So it's like a crisp data ping echoing through the system.
Yes. A ping announcing that the divine law is fully capable of overriding any perceived lack in the physical hardware.
Meaning, if we go back to our laptop analogy,
Right.
the external power source for this recovery does not rely on the failing battery of your corrupted machine.
No, not at all. It brings its own infinite power. It initiates the protocol by establishing that the source requires absolutely zero external energy to sustain or restart the system.
That's incredible.
Ahmed cross-references this mathematically with another part of the text, Surah 39, verse 36, which asks this rhetorical question. Is not Allah sufficient for his servant?
And the Arabic there uses that root.
Exactly. The Arabic used is bekafin, the exact same root. The kaf ensures the system has the absolute power to proceed regardless of local entropy.
Okay, so we have infinite power, infinite sufficiency with Kāf.
Right.
But raw power blasting out into a vacuum doesn't actually do anything.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, a massive signal of truth bouncing around in empty space is totally useless unless it has a trajectory.
Which brings us directly to the second letter, ha.
Ha, okay.
This is the semantic root of huda, which translates to guidance.
So if Kāf is the power.
Ha is the navigation protocol.
Okay, that tracks.
If you are blasting a monumental legacy signal into the world, it needs a lock on target. Ha is the structural signal that keeps the inherited truth moving toward its correct operational destination.
So it stops the signal from drifting.
Exactly. It ensures the data doesn't experience signal drift, where it, slowly degrades into cultural mythology or just gets lost in the noise of history.
Power and trajectory. Got it. But a signal still needs something to receive it, right?
Yes, it does.
It has to interface with humanity somehow.
Exactly. And that introduces the third letter, Ya.
Okay, yeah.
Ya represents the principle of active agency. It's derived from words like yad, meaning hand or power, and it functions linguistically as a calling particle.
Like saying, oh, you.
Precisely. Systemically, Ya represents the human functional node.
Oh, okay.
The divine signal doesn't just broadcast indiscriminately. It requires a specific individual point of contact.
A conscious human agent.
Yes, someone who must actively process and carry that signal in real time.
So the Ya is the processor on the motherboard.
Great way to put it.
It's you, or me, or any human being who is actually receiving and executing the code. Because, a book sitting closed on a shelf doesn't fight entropy.
No, it just gathers dust.
Right. A human being has to read it, internalize it, and act on it.
That is the perfect distinction. The system requires a conscious node. But here's the vulnerability.
Oh.
A processor is completely useless if its sensors are clouded by bad data.
Oh, right. Garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly. Which brings us to the fourth letter.
Ain.
Ain. Yes. Ain is the semantic anchor for ilm, meaning knowledge, and it literally translates to an eye or a spring.
So systemically, it represents
Perceptive insight.
the ability to actually see the data clearly.
Yes.
But how does that work in practice? Like, how does a letter give you clear sensors?
Because when a human node is anchored by the concept of ain, they develop the capacity to observe source data without the distortion of cognitive bias.
Oh, wow.
Ahmed links this to the concept of ain al-yaqin, or the eye of certainty, which is mentioned in Surah 102.
The eye is search.
It is the ability to perceive reality exactly as it is, perfectly filtering out the corruption of your surrounding environment.
So you stop looking at, say, your society's traditions or your family's habits as ultimate truths.
Exactly. You start viewing them merely as raw data.
You effectively step outside the matrix of your local culture.
Precisely. You see clearly.
Okay, so we have the power with Kāf, the navigation with Hath, the human processor with Ya, and the unbiased sensor with Ain.
Right.
But how do we know the node itself isn't malfunctioning?
Ah.
Like, how do we know the human being isn't just hallucinating their own truth?
That requires the final letter of the header.
There
It is the principle of veracity and structural integrity.
Structural integrity.
It's the semantic root of IDQ, meaning truth, and obra, meaning consistency.
So it's the validation protocol.
It is the ultimate truth check. It ensures the agent's internal state, their actions, their ethics, their consistency is perfectly aligned with the external divine signal they were receiving.
So no hypocrisy allowed.
Hypocrisy is a system error. Ad ensures there is no hypocrisy.
Okay, let's step back and look at this for a second.
Let's do it.
Because when you lay it out sequentially, like that Kāf-Hā-Yā-ʿAyn, it isn't just a list of theological concepts.
No.
It is an operational equation for system recovery.
It is exactly an equation. Ahmed calls it the equation of mercy, or Rama.
The equation of mercy.
The formula works sequentially. The sufficiency, Kāf, and the guidance, Hava, empower the agent, the Yad,
Right?
to operate with clear insight, Ain, and unbreakable veracity, Lord. When all 5 variables align in a human being, you achieve a systemic override of entropy.
And what's just incredible to me is that the very next verse in Surah Maryam seems to confirm this exact reading.
It does.
Right after the letters Kāf-Hā-Yā-ʿAyn, the text says, quote, "This is a mention of the mercy of your Lord to his servant Zechariah."
Yes.
It immediately calls this 5-part sequence a mercy.
And this requires us to fundamentally redefine what that word means.
Right, because we usually think of mercy Rama as an emotional state.
Like pity or a warm, comforting feeling.
Exactly.
But in a rationalist, system-level sense, mercy is a technical restorative buffer.
A buffer.
It is the operational protocol that protects, heals, and reboots a stalled system to ensure its continuity when it should have otherwise been destroyed by entropy.
That makes profound sense. But this brings me back to my earlier skepticism.
I thought it might.
Because this equation is fascinating in theory, right? But metadata is completely useless unless it can actually boot up a dead computer.
True.
A master code, no matter how elegant it looks on paper, is only proven when you execute it on failing hardware.
Absolutely.
Does Ahmed provide any proof of this working on a system that has already failed?
He does, and that logically pivots the entire analysis to the real-world case studies presented in Surah Maryam.
Oh, right. Zechariah and Maryam.
The chapter doesn't just give us the code, it shows us the code running on those 2 very specific functional nodes.
Okay.
Let's start with Zechariah.
Right, Zechariah. If we're looking for a failed system, he definitely fits the bill.
Yeah.
The text describes him as being in what we would call terminal entropy.
Exactly. Zechariah represents the ultimate case of overriding biological decay.
His physical state is described explicitly in the text, right?
Yes. His bones are thin and his head is white with age. He is praying because he feels the successors who will come after him, and his wife is entirely barren.
So physically speaking, his hardware is completely obsolete.
It's done.
He's a failed node for passing on any legacy. In purely physical, empirical terms, his genetic line is finished. The entropy problem has won.
Right.
So how does the metadata fix a dead battery?
This is exactly where the Kāf, the Sufficiency protocol, engages.
With infinite power.
Yes. The text demonstrates the divine source's capacity is mathematically sufficient to restart a stalled biological legacy. It requires 0 external biological energy to do so.
Wow.
The override is initiated, and the result is the impossible birth of a son, John or Yahya.
And Yahya isn't just a biological heir to keep the family name going.
Not at all.
He's a perfectly calibrated new node for the system. The text specifically notes that he was given wisdom while a child.
Which is the systemic proof that the Ha, the guidance, and the Ain, the insight, were successfully downloaded into the new generation.
Completely bypassing the biological decay of the parent node.
Exactly. These signals survived?
Okay, so if Zechariah is a laptop with a completely dead battery, a system that has just run out of power over time,
Yes.
Maryam, or Mary, presents an entirely different kind of hardware problem.
She does. We have to evolve the metaphor here from a decaying hard drive to structural engineering.
Yep.
Maryam represents the singular node, the Yah. She is tasked with carrying a monumental legacy signal, arguably one of the most critical in human history, without any of the traditional support hardware that society or biology dictates.
Because she has no male counterpart in this equation.
Exactly. She is a self-contained system.
So from an empirical biological standpoint, her system is lacking the expected dependencies to run the reproductive program.
Society looks at her and says, this cannot compute.
Right. But the divine override kicks in again, and the response given to her in the text is so beautifully simple. Just says, "It is easy for me."
It is easy for me is the ultimate reinforcement of the Kāf, the systemic sufficiency.
Right.
The divine signal effectively states, insufficient hardware detected. It is irrelevant. I am running the program anyway.
Wow.
The system overrides biological impossibility because the source is sufficient.
But Maryam isn't just a passive vessel in this, is she? She also perfectly embodies the final letter of the code, the ud.
The structural integrity.
Yeah.
And this is one of the most mathematically precise cross-references in Ahmed's entire analysis. The Quran explicitly defines Maryam's core systemic identity using this exact semantic root.
Wait, really? Where?
In Surah 5, verse 75, she's literally defined by her structural integrity. The text says, his mother was a adiquatun, a fierce supporter of truth.
Adiquatun.
Okay.
That is the exact root of the id in our master code.
Exactly. The ud in the preamble is a direct validation cross-reference to her character.
That's amazing.
She is the ultimate idika. She's the functional node who verifies the overwhelming divine signal through her absolute consistency in action, despite having no traditional societal or biological support.
Her internal truth perfectly aligned with the external signal.
Precisely.
Okay, so Zechariah and Maryam represent the triumph over biological entropy. The hardware was either failing with age or missing expected components, and the master code just overrode it.
Right.
But here's where my mind goes next.
Oh, where's that?
What happens when the physical hardware is perfectly fine, but the network itself, the environment you're plugged into, is completely corrupted?
Ah, like a sociological contagion.
Exactly, because that connects us seamlessly to the problem of sociological entropy.
That is the crucial next step in the Surah's modular study, and it brings us to the fascinating case study of Abraham.
Abraham, right.
Abraham's system is not failing biologically at all. He is young, he's highly capable.
But he is stuck in a highly toxic, totally corrupted environment.
Yes. His society, and specifically his own father, is steeped in idolatry.
The network is flooded with bad data. He's surrounded by 1,000 different false signals telling him how to live, what to worship, what is valuable.
Precisely. Societies decay not just physically, but ideologically.
Right.
And in this toxic environment, Abraham maintains the ud, the structural integrity. The Quran explicitly titles him a dupiquan, a man of truth, using that exact same root.
Wow, another connection.
He manages to completely isolate his node from the corrupted network. And the mechanism of how he does this is brilliant. He utilizes the ayn, the perceptive insight.
I actually remember this part of his story.
Mm-hmm.
He challenges his father's entire belief system, but he doesn't do it with emotional arguments.
No, he doesn't.
He uses a functional critique. He says to his father, "Oh, my father, why do you worship that which does not hear and does not see?"
He says it does not see lo yubaru. Abraham is pointing out that his father's false system entirely lacks the ayn, the insight.
It has zero perceptual capacity.
Exactly. It is literally dead wood. Abraham, because he is processing the ayn of the divine signal, is able to observe this lack of logic clearly.
So the insight allows him to cut through the cognitive bias of his upbringing.
This is how the mechanism works. He steps outside the matrix, breaks away from his father's entropy, and establishes a brand new, sustainable legacy.
Which brings us to a massive paradigm shift.
It does.
When we talk about legacy today, human beings almost always think about genetics. We think about bloodlines, family trees, passing down our DNA or our wealth.
Physical things.
Right. But what Ahmed is showing is that this master code actually redefines what legacy means at a systemic level. Abraham leaves his father's corrupted legacy behind.
It establishes the ultimate law of inheritance, or warith. The divine system is not reliant on genetic bloodlines to protect its heirs.
Because genetics are physical, they're subject to entropy.
Exactly. Instead, the system relies entirely on the transmission of this blueprint.
A bloodline can decay, but the code is eternal.
Ahmed cross-references this with a profound universal law found in Surah 21, verse 105, which states that the earth is inherited by the Ulyan.
The Ulyan.
Now, the Ulyan are not the genetically superior, or the wealthy, or the physically strong.
Okay.
Systemically, the Ulyan are the righteous servants who actively repair the system. They are the maintainers.
The ones utilizing the Kāf-Hā-Yā protocol.
Exactly, to fix what is broken in their societies. They are the true heirs to the legacy.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Because let's be honest, we aren't ancient prophets.
No, we aren't.
We aren't Zechariah or Maryam or Abraham. You might be sitting in traffic right now or at your desk or doing the dishes.
Right.
How does this hyper-technical maintenance manual apply to someone tuning in right now who maybe feels completely overwhelmed by the decay and the entropy they see around them in their own life?
Well, what's truly fascinating here is how universally applicable this mechanism is.
Yeah.
The text anticipates this exact skepticism. It directly addresses the person who assumes that because a system is stalled, maybe your career is barren, your family is fractured, your society feels dead, that it's the end of the line.
That entropy has won.
Right. In verse 67 of the chapter, it asks a piercing question. Does man not remember that we created him before while he was nothing?
From absolute zero.
From absolute zero. This 5-part preamble serves as the mathematical proof for recreation and restoration.
Think about it logically.
Yes, logically. If the divine source was sufficient, the Kāf to initiate the entire system of your existence from nothing, it is mathematically rationally sufficient to restore it at any point in space or time.
It doesn't matter how corrupted the hard drive is.
No.
It doesn't matter how degraded the battery is. The source code can format and rebuild it.
It proves that the source can restart any system. For you, the listener, this is an empowerment protocol.
I love that. An empowerment protocol.
It is designed to make you reject fatalism entirely. When you understand this algebra, you stop seeing yourself as a helpless victim of entropy, and you start recognizing yourself as a highly capable node of continuity.
A node of continuity. It really is an awe-inspiring reality to synthesize.
It truly is.
What we've unpacked today is that Kāf-Hā-Yā-ʿAyn-Ṣād is not just a string of letters to be recited without thought. It is the definitive algebraic proof that the divine system is structurally designed to ensure the objective truth is never exhausted.
Never.
No matter the biological decay, no matter the sociological corruption, no matter the sheer weight of entropy dragging everything down around you, there is a master code of mercy.
Sufficiency and guidance empowering an active agent with insight and veracity.
The legacy is unbreakable.
It is the ultimate insurance policy for objective truth. But remember, the Yā dictates that it requires your active participation.
Right, the human node.
Which leaves us with a necessary question to consider. If this systemic master code can restore a barren lineage, and if it can override a deeply corrupted society, what stalled system in your own life is just waiting for you to step up as the active node and initiate the restorative protocol?
That's a powerful question. And as you think about that, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought that Ahmed's book hints at.
Oh, yes. The scope of this.
Right. We've spent this entire time unpacking just 5 letters, realizing they form a complete rescue program that reboots human legacies. But there are 24 other detached letters scattered across the text.
It's mind-boggling to think about.
If Kāf-Hā-Yā-ʿAyn-Ṣād is a rescue program, what on earth do the rest of the systemic codes do?
It's incredible.
It just leaves you with this, I don't know, this echoing, awe-inspiring sense of divine light just waiting to fill the vacuum of entropy. Something for you to deeply consider until our next deep dive.